Hi, Dyslexic Genius here, Brad Hurt. My phone number is 864-236-1680, or you can email me at dyslexicgeniushurt@gmail.com. Just came up online, how do I put all this together? How do I get the screws and the nuts here? Well, years ago, I took a chunk of 2x4 and I drilled a hole through it. There's my illustrious hole.
You cut it in half.
I cut it in half. I can set this in, and when I rebuild a reproducer, this makes it very easy. The reproducer, the needle bar, misses everything, and you can work on it. You're not down here on the bench trying to do this and wiggling around. And the other thing I do sometimes, I double check all the threads. This thread, and these threads here that lock the back of the body on. You have to understand that this body is made out of brass. And the needle bar is all brass except for this steel bar part of the needle bar, which is pinned and soldered in place. So how do I put all this together? Well, I put the springs in. You can see this. I have this spring here. I'm using reproduction screws here because I don't have any old ones, and this is for demo purposes only. After you put the springs in, you stick the screw through and you wind the nut up like that on both sides. Then you stick this through here, and you can kind of feel that top screw. And it's in. You can feel it hit the screw. And I use these magnifying glasses because I'm 67 years old and I had my retina, my macula peeled off, so I got like one eyeball and I'm half blind and whatever we'll talk about. My mother told me I was going to go blind. Then you make sure you hit the nipples. You hit these things.
Do that again. Hit what?
We get these nipples that stick up that I talked about, filing them down, and you hit the slot. So once you get one screw in, you can feel that. You heard that tick? That's a tick. Now you just put one finger, you put it on the board, you put one finger on the needle bar, and you come in here. Sometimes they don't want to go. Sometimes you have to play with them. There we go. And I've stabbed them. Now.
Have you screwed them all the way?
No. You leave the nuts loose till the final assembly. So we turn it over. We drop a mica in. And we can, so you just back the bottom one off, and that pulled it away from it. Now you align the mica with the hole, that little hole here, and you can see that that's off. So you say that the mica hole's off. So what you do, flip the mica around because these are perfectly straight. And now that you see the middle of the mica, the hole, and you see the needle bar is off a little. Well, you just bend the needle bar a little, like that. Just bend it over a little. You have this loose still. Let me take a look. And I've hit it. I've hit that circle by bending the needle bar, just pressing gently. Now what you'll do is you'll take a pair of pliers, you'll get the little bitty screw, and what I do we'll say that this screw here is the little bitty screw. I will take a screwdriver, I will take beeswax, I will fill this full of beeswax, and that will stick in.
So you fill the top of the screw with beeswax.
You fill the slot with beeswax, and you stick the screwdriver in there. And then when you hold up the screwdriver, this is really critical. When you hold up the screwdriver, that's sticking in. And now that you have a gap between the mica and the bar coming up, you go like that, and you drop it down, and you'll feel it, and you get it to start. Once you get it to start, you go in about halfway with it. After you've gotten it in halfway, you adjust this bottom screw, you screw it the other direction like you're going to tighten it, and you'll bring the flat part of the needle bar up, and it'll touch the mica. Then you screw down a little. Then, because the screw is smaller than the mica hole, you can move it around like this and make sure that no edges are touching the side of the reproducer, because that'll dull out your sound. Once you have that done, these screws are still loose. We put in the second gasket. We put in the back part of the reproducer. We tighten all this down. After we do that, we come around here and we look at the mica. I can do this at an angle. And the needle bar isn't pushing like that. You can see the mica flex, right, maybe. Or it's pulling up on it. You see how that flexes up? It's just resting there perfectly. And after that's perfectly done and nothing's touched, tighten. After that's done, you take a soldering iron, you put a little dab of beeswax. I scoop it out with a screwdriver, roll it up in my finger, and I just stick it in there so it's resting right here on the top piece. And when it's resting on the top piece, I come in with my soldering iron, it has a point on it, regular old soldering iron, and I just hold it here. It'll bubble up and go around.
So you put it to the beeswax.
Put it to the beeswax and it melts around. You don't want to drag it around like this. If you do it right, you'll just hold the beeswax there and it'll just overflow. Then you come around, you have the back on, you do the same thing. You drop a piece of beeswax right on the top of this.
Top of what?
And then you come down with a soldering iron and you hold it right on the nut, the screw that's holding the mica and the needle bar together, and it just bubbles over. Boom, you're sealed. You kind of blow on it, cools it down, you're good. Now, after you've done all that, you put the needle screw in and you give it a little, I can hear it. After you've set that, everything looks adjusting. I take a pair of tweezers like this, and I just turn the nuts. Victor had a wrench for this. And for the last 40 years, I've been saying, you know, I should build a little wrench, but I never get around to it. I just use these big tweezers. You just run that down there like that. And then all the screws on these are a 256. Okay, what I do is I have a tap, tapered tap, and like this one's re-nickeled on this number 2. I come in and I'll re-tap those out because there's a little nickel in there, and then I'll re-tap these out. I also check when I rebuild for customers, I re-tap all these out. I re-tap the flanges out right here that stick out. You also want to look at the flange and make sure that the flange, this piece, is not bent up or bent down. Then you take a pair of pliers, needle nose, you get in here and you kind of adjust them so it's running flat. Because if you're doing it and it's like this or like this, the screw's not going to go in easily. That's the hardest part on the rebuild, is putting in the needle bar. You know, you can buy a 256 and a cheap handle probably at Harbor Freight or someplace, or, you know, Lowe's, Amazon. It's my buddy. And that's how you do it. Make sure that you clean the mica, put it all together, and go test it before you do everything. When everything's totally done, you tighten all these screws, everything's done. You go pop, 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 you hear it. You'll hear it. It's sound, like you're hitting a string on a guitar. And if you hear a dull sound, you go, okay, the mica's hitting the side of the body. Now you have to pull everything back apart and take a look. Yeah, it gets complicated. And yeah, this takes a long time. It looks quick on video, but it's not. It takes an hour and a half. This is a lot of fun, and that's my tip for the day.